My address today is structured in two parts. I will first outline what I suggest the rule of law means in practical terms, and suggest how a shared and unwavering commitment to it has been pivotal to our nation-building efforts over the last 6 decades. And then, looking towards the future, I will explore the need at this time to reimagine our traditional conception of the rule of law on account of some significant challenges that are now upon us. The first fundamental tenet of the rule of law is accountability, which essentially refers to the idea that the power of the state is subject to legal limits and can be held to account before the courts. Another core tenet of the rule of law is equality. This encompasses two distinct but related principles: equality before the law and the equal protection of the law, both of which are enshrined in Article 12(1) of the Constitution. Next, the rule of law demands that laws should be clear, consistent, and predictable. And I've grouped these values together because they, along with other values, have traditionally been described as the formal aspects of the rule of law, unlike the more substantive aspects of the rule of law mentioned earlier. Another core tenet of the rule of law is transparency, also known as the principle of open justice. This reflects the foundational principle that justice should not only be done, but must also be seen to be done. And it goes directly towards the preservation of public trust and confidence in the judiciary and in its adjudicative processes. Finally, the fundamental tenets of the rule of law that I've outlined rest on a crucial foundation: the existence of an independent and impartial judiciary. And this, I suggest, is another core tenet of the rule of law. To begin with, the first set of dramatic challenges that will affect our work are issues that threaten the sustainability of the legal process. There are several challenges in this regard, such as the increasing complexity of disputes, but I will focus on two in particular: access to justice and the sustainability of the legal profession. Let me begin with access to justice, which stands as one of the most pressing challenges affecting the sustainability of the legal process. While it has long been a challenge, the need to address it has become more urgent due to something of a new normal, where a significant component of our actual and potential court users are self-represented persons. In this new normal, we must ensure that all parties, and especially self-represented persons, have a realistic opportunity to commence or defend a claim and a fair shot at presenting their case regardless of their resources or legal literacy. Our justice system must not become the exclusive preserve of a select few, because the sustainability of the legal process rests on a shared societal commitment to the rule of law. And this in turn requires the public to trust that the courts will deliver justice for all, and especially for those most in need. Let me turn to another issue that threatens the sustainability of the legal process, and that is the sustainability of legal practice. While we may be able to dispense with the involvement of lawyers in certain types of cases, especially those of small value, lawyers are critical to ensure society's continued access to the rule of law in so many other areas, both within and beyond our courtrooms. We should therefore broaden our conception of the rule of law to embrace the need to ensure that legal practice itself remains sustainable. Let me turn to the next set of challenges that should be accounted for in our renewed conception of the rule of law. And by this, I refer to global threats affecting all of humanity. Let me first highlight two such threats and explain how they have already given rise to new and often complex legal issues that transcend jurisdictional boundaries. The first is that posed by the rapid advancements in technology, particularly in artificial intelligence. It may be noted that many countries, including Singapore, have necessarily taken a cautious approach to regulating AI. And as a result, legislation may not provide an answer to some of these legal issues. In these circumstances, the courts may sometimes be called upon first to determine whether existing doctrines and principles in the common law can be relied on effectively, or whether there is a need to reconsider them or even to develop new ones. This brings me to my second example of a global threat affecting all of humanity, and that is climate change. The widely accepted scientific evidence, coupled with the need for urgent action, will inevitably lead to legal disputes that come before the courts, such as those that seek to hold public and private entities accountable for their active contributions to climate damage or their passive failure to mitigate it. But as I've sought to explain today, there is a need, at least for us in Singapore, to refresh that traditional conception from one that was centrally concerned with constraining the excesses of power to one that also takes due account of challenges that undermine the sustainability of the legal process and threats that affect all of humanity. We can move in this direction by embracing values such as accessibility, proportionality, contextuality, and coherence, and ensuring that legal practice is kept sustainable. And there is a more fundamental point to all of this, which is that our responses to these challenges will have a direct impact on the level of trust and confidence in our courts, on the court's legitimacy, and therefore the continued relevance of the rule of law to future generations of Singaporeans.
I'm being told I should take questions from Pigeonhole, and maybe I'll combine it into how should we communicate more to the public the independence, impartiality of the judiciary, the values of the rule of law.
We actually have to make it our business to communicate with our society, to try to make sure that we are communicating with society in order to demystify the courts, to demystify the work that we do, and to help people have a better understanding. And initiatives like this conversation series is an example of to make ourselves more accessible and better understood by our population. We've also put things like how-to guides on YouTube channels. We've put videos, we've put as much information as possible. We're trying to use technology to smoothen and simplify the ways in which people can get information from us, even on the website. So communications is a very important part of building trust and building legitimacy for the courts. And we particularly have to do it today, and we are doing it in a very directed manner.
So what worries you most and what gives you most hope? What keeps you awake at night worrying about it? And what inspires you to get up the next morning, put on your suit and robes and go back to work?
What worries me is this confluence of things that are coming to us at a pace and in a way that I really cannot get my head around, which is what I've tried to talk about today. That really does worry me. And it worries me not only as a judge, not only as Chief Justice, but it worries me from the point of view of where this is going to go, affecting society as a whole. And there are numerous things. I mean, I talked about climate change and Gen AI. There are lots of other things that are also worrying. The whole problem with cybersecurity, I think, is another issue. The breakdown of truth and disinformation in society is another problem. The growing tensions between the superpowers and the geopolitical issues is another issue. And what really keeps me awake at night is this idea of how all these things come together and how that must affect our people and our country, because when it affects our people and our country, it'll affect the court. And that's why we are trying in our own way, with the modest steps that we take, to address some of these issues in the range of ways that I've outlined in the course of my paper today. But I do think it's a time and an era that all of us need to pull together in order to have these useful and meaningful discussions to find solutions that can help one another navigate these waters. But I do think that this is a time for greater collaboration and greater cooperation. That, I think, is what is needed in this time. And we need to start focusing on building trust so that we can work together to find some of these solutions.